And there are certain areas of AI that don't need humans as much. It's called synthetic data, where you can actually create this data ex humans.
Yeah.
But again, just seeing where the budgets are going, where the market's going, like there's no way to replace humans in AI yet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 26th episode of Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship. My name is Lum, your Web3 host. For those of you who are new to the show, Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship is a show highlighting the journeys of builders and innovators in the Web3 and entrepreneurship. Some topics, especially in Web3, may get a bit technical, but we do our best to keep it accessible for most people. And here I am today with Trevor Koverko. He's the co-founder of Sapien. Hi, Trevor, can you give a quick introduction about yourself and your company?
Hey everyone, thanks Lam, great to be here. I'm a Web3 founder. I can go back to the early beginnings of it if you want. I'll tell you quickly my current company, data labeling is our industry. So it's kind of the subset of AI where data is important. So where, AI is really two things. It's data and compute. And there's some algorithms in the middle. But we're kind of focused on the data side. And so we've realized that having good structured data before training and then being able to fine tune that data set after training is really important. And so we're building a large network of human data labelers that can help any model or data set kind of improve its performance by leveraging human feedback and fine tuning. Prior to this, I was been in crypto for a long time. I was an early kind of community member of the Bitcoin ecosystem back in kind of 2011, 2012. Yeah, I was super engaged early on. There was a lot of us living in our parents' basements, hanging out on the weekends out of Toronto. And there was a few early events in California that kind of got me into the space. And then interesting, Bitcoin was kind of off and on for forever because there wasn't much to do back then in Bitcoin. But then there was some interesting dynamics where there was like new coins that were based on Bitcoin that started emerging, and that was kind of crazy. It's like, oh wow, you can have another coin on top of Bitcoin or a fork of Bitcoin. So I was kind of involved in some of those early projects like Mastercoin and MadeSafe Coin. These are like the first pre-EVM altcoins before Ethereum. And so I was like learning, doing some of the first token projects ever. Go ahead.
I see. So you back in like what, 2014 or something, 2015?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right around then. And then that's right around then is when Ethereum started coming around. And we were really lucky being from Toronto. That's where Vitalik is from, and that's where Ethereum is from. A lot of the co-founders like Joe Lubin and Anthony and Vitalik are all from Toronto. And there was this kind of meetup we used to hang out at called Bitcoin Decentral, and that's where Vitalik actually was like handing out the white paper, and we were just super lucky. We were one of the first people to have access to it. He was working for Bitcoin Magazine at the time and was just a smart student at Waterloo for a period of time, which is a technical university near Toronto. And Ethereum came along, so it was a lot of fun. It was like a whole crazy moment of like a lot of smart people coming to Toronto, like Gavin Wood and Charles Hoskinson and some of the other co-founders of Ethereum who went on to do other things. Like Charles Hoskinson did Cardano, obviously, and Gavin Wood did Polkadot. There's just a really high density of engineering talent, and not just engineering, but like really smart architectural protocol people, which are a little different than just, a typical run-of-the-mill engineer. So someone like Gavin Wood, who could actually write the Ethereum virtual machine, that's a special kind of, he's a PhD CS person, and takes a special kind of person to be able to do that. Lots of fun stories from those days, but it was really the beginning of kind of my full-time commitment to the industry.
I see. Wow. So I think you basically lived through like 3 crypto cycles already, right? One of the very super early. Yeah.
You go from being caught in the cycles to being desensitized to the cycles, and then finally you become smart about the cycles now, where you actually hate bull markets and you love the bear market. So those are the three phases of cycles. You're either like caught up in it, you don't care because you've desensitized from it, and then you start getting smart. But in my experience, it takes a long time to get to phase 3 of cycles. So,
Yeah,
hopefully that's where I am.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think
I know everyone's like
yeah.
everyone's like a bull market's coming. I'm like, not already. The bear market just got started.
Right, I know, right? Yeah, so I think for most of my guests or most of the listeners, I don't think there's many people who actually lived through like 3 cycles yet. So for us, like the bull market, most people get excited, right? But usually for builders, bear market is so much better. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Where you can completely
Engineers
focus,
are
right?
getting expensive again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of competition. The peaceful days, I miss those.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But anyway, yeah, we basically gonna ride this bull run for what, next 1.5 years, something like that, or 2 years, depends. But yeah, that's how
I've
it
stopped
is.
trying to predict those cycles because I'm obviously always wrong. So I just see where it goes.
Yeah, it's super hard to time it, so I don't think any of us should try it. Anyway, wow, but it sounds like you've actually known a lot of the original members of the Ethereum people. Then so I don't think I've met any of them. I've only read a few books. I think one of it is like the Cryptopians, which is actually a great book, right? It's gave
With
about the
Laura Shin,
history. Yeah, Laura
yeah,
Shin
she's
gave
great.
about the history of how a lot of the. I don't actually know how true it is. I'm just hoping it is true. She seems to be like quite partial, right, in her writing, in putting a focus. But yeah, but I'm actually quite glad that I think it came out okay for most people. Looks like everyone is doing their own thing right now at the moment. Polkadot, Cardano, and Ethereum is still moving on. Yeah, so quite original. So back then, you said you were just involved in Bitcoin community. Were you a writer, builder? What did you do back then?
Yeah, super early on, it was a lot of like kind of hardcore libertarian type people that got attracted to Bitcoin for those reasons. And then as time went on, the technologists started getting interested. I remember there was kind of a couple of moments where Bitcoin, it wasn't even crypto back then, it was just Bitcoin, kind of crossed the chasm. It was when I saw Vitalik was doing like a Skype call with Naval Ravikant, who's like a really well-known investor in Silicon Valley. And we're like, oh, wow, like Naval's paying attention to this. It was a kind of crazy, because it was kind of like a really crypto cypherpunk community, and then it started becoming more mainstream. And at first we didn't know how to think about the California people coming into it, but looking back, it was what the space needed. It was a lot of like technical talent, a lot of new folks that could like move the technology forward and help with what are now solve scaling problems, or soon to be solve scaling problems. So yeah, it was like a slow journey from just a crazy white paper from an anonymous set of authors, and then to what it is today.
Yeah, it's really crazy, the whole story of Ethereum, Bitcoin, all the other founding stories as well. Anyway, so how did you go from that to basically where you are right now, founding your company? What was the jump or the switch?
Yeah, I started a company in 2017 called Polymath, and so I was kind of the co-founder, CEO for about five years in that company. So that was like my main project that people know me for in crypto. And so that was an early tokenization network. So we tried to make it easy for anyone to tokenize, not just protocols, not just cash or NFTs, but like real digital assets or securities and financial assets, things like this. And so that was Polymath, and we launched it, and I think in early 2018. We founded it in 2017, and it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. We raised capital from really good investors. We had a really successful token launch. We actually evolved since I started it to be a layer 1 blockchain. So it started out as an application on Ethereum, and then we realized like through that process that tokenized securities require like different primitives and different like base layer infrastructure to be successful or to even work. So like certain things around compliance, certain things around identity, certain things around confidentiality, like these factors were important for our users, and it wasn't really baked into the Ethereum protocol. So we ended up, actually, I got Charles Hoskinson to help co-design the original architecture. And he was amazing,
Nice.
super helpful. And we ended up kind of launching our own layer one chain called Polymesh. So instead of Polymath, it's now Polymesh, and the token's PolyX. And I'm not day-to-day in the company, which is great because we were able to fully decentralize, and we have kind of like a DAO-like structure, but it's a foundation in Switzerland that oversees the network. And we have a great, amazing team that is running the community, and the token's been doing great in terms of value accrual. I think we designed it really well, where usage translates into value accrual, and yeah. So that was kind of that was my first kind of thing in crypto was Polymath and now Polymesh, and I'm just really proud of the team. The chain has really gained a lot of traction. Like we've got 40, I think, regulated financial institutions as validators on the network. And we designed the architecture to be kind of very conducive to being compliant focused, but also public. We wanted the chain to be a public chain, not like these private chains that you see like inside some banks and stuff like that. That's a little too boring. We wanted it to be both like exciting and scalable and permissionless, but permissioned. So actually we are a permissioned public.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's a public permissioned chain, which is kind of what we thought the trade-offs said we have to do. And so that was the one thing we decided to do. And yeah, it's off and running, and I'm really proud of the team, really proud of the project, and it's in a great position now, I think, to be one of the top real world asset projects, just because we've been around the longest, we've learned the most from our users, and we have, I think, some of the best technology to help support the next wave.
Nice. I to be honest, it's like the first time I heard about the Polymesh. Is this like an EVM chain, or like what? And I guess or what technology did it build on?
We actually chose Substrate, which is Gavin Wood's framework. Yeah, we liked a lot of things around the how modular it was, how it helped with finality, which was important for us too. And so Substrate was a great framework for us. It still is. We looked at all the different options back then, and that was the one for this particular use case made the most sense.
I see. So basically, it's like you can think of it like an equivalent of Polkadot, but on like on layer 0. Is that a good way to think about it? For Polymesh?
It's the set of Substrate isn't a blockchain. It's just a framework, so you can kind of like pick and choose what parts of it you want to use, and we did. It's kind of like a buffet. We can choose whatever components we want, from consensus to data availability and these kinds of things. And it's a very modular, like hub and spoke model. That's how Gavin designed it. But yeah, we use a lot of that toolbox. You can see, you'll recognize like the way we use the Block Explorer. They have a lot of tooling and infrastructure in that ecosystem, and we leverage as much as we can for Polymesh.
Awesome. Okay. So after you move away from the project, I guess 2022, right?
And it's being one more thing. It's
one more thing.
So one more thing is it's really exciting, because we used to call it security tokens back then. That was like tokenized assets were called security tokens. Now they're called real world assets. So there's been kind of a semantic change. And so it's really exciting, because it's been crypto has been in bull markets and bear markets in the last 10 years. Yeah. Not quite 10, let's call it 7. Real world assets, as they're called today, has been in a 6.5-year bear market without any bullishness. So it's been a long, painful journey of like, everyone knows it's coming. Everyone knows, trillions of dollars of financial assets are migrating to the blockchain. It's already started with like stable coins, cash, and like that's growing like crazy, like tokenized dollars, putting a new asset or an old asset like USD on a new rails or new set of infrastructure like the blockchain. Like that makes a lot of sense. We're seeing NFTs and things like this. As we move up the continuum, we're going to see like commodities, and then stocks and equities, and then private equity, and then real estate, and it just goes on and on. So we're just really excited, because now it's actually become a narrative in crypto. And narratives, sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're not. But for this asset class, it's very important, because this takes a lot of infrastructure, a lot of extra effort to get through all the compliance. Like there's a lot of like hesitation on Wall Street. But then something happened recently where Larry Fink from BlackRock just said something extremely bullish about tokenization. That was kind of like our Naval moment with Vitalik for Ethereum. Like that was what the same kind of moment for us at Polymesh and at our industry of tokenization, because wow, now it's exciting. Now you look, everyone's talking about it. All the tier one VCs that didn't really care that much about security tokens, now everybody's writing in the annual reports about how this is an exciting asset class. So anyways, I'm just really proud of our community and the team and our operating team now that have stuck through the bear market. And now that's what we kind of decided to do with Polymesh, was instead of trying to like push for a market that's not there yet, we're just too early. Let's take a step back and let's build the infrastructure. Let's build the foundation. Let's build the scaffolding. And then when the market is ready, we'll be ready for it. So instead of us pushing to launch stuff on Ethereum, we decided to take a breath back. And at the time, it was kind of a tough decision, because it was like, launching a layer one, a sovereign chain from scratch is like it's not for the faint of heart. And so kudos to the Polymesh team for pulling it off.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for sharing that story. It's actually really amazing. Yeah, and I think we all know that I think real assets probably just began to kind of take off a little bit this year, but I think thanks to BlackRock and a bunch of other people now realizing how important it is, right? And just for my listener, actually, I'll probably leave a link up here. People who want to watch my fireside chat episode 3 about real world assets, which I did with my co-host. So
oh, nice.
Yeah. So we did it the other day. It's a very simple introduction to like real assets, like 20 minutes for people who may be curious. So yeah, I'm also quite bullish on that real asset narrative as well.
Smart people, there you go. Smart people like Lam talking about it. And it's true, because it is exciting, because now it's like there's so many things possible now. You can use, when things come on chain, and you can use it as collateral, and everything's interoperable, and like it's like a new global Wall Street, because everything doesn't really interoperate today. Like the Chinese stock market doesn't talk to the US stock market, and everything's kind of opaque, and there's not a lot of like cross liquidity between assets that should have it, because there's enough demand for it. So to me, it's always been super obvious. I think I just underestimated the amount of new infra that needed to get built, but it looks like the world is up for the challenge now, because a lot of really exciting, smart, technical founders are getting into real world assets, whereas before, in the last era, it was a lot of like businessy type people, and that's what we didn't need at that time. We needed like really primitive builders, like people who could build the base layer infrastructure. So I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. And I think if I remember the forecast from some of the report that I read, I think by 2030, just the real asset itself will be worth like 12 trillion US dollar, which is already like 5x the amount of the entire market cap of the whole current crypto market, which is like 2.5 trillion right now, I think. So anyway, there's a lot of great thing going on there, for that. So before we dive into your company, actually, I'm quite curious. Can you tell us a bit about your hobbies? Like what do you do outside of Web3 or crypto?
Yeah, I've a former athlete, so I used to be a hockey player when I was younger, and that's always in my DNA. Nice. So I like to still play with the old guys for, like, we call it beer league hockey once a week. And then I also got into martial arts a little bit. So I got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu, which was a lot of fun. And I play some chess from time to time to keep. Okay. I've kind of plateaued my rating. In fact, I'm going down a bit, so I don't know what's going on, but yeah, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a very fun hobby for sure. Martial art is fun. I wish I would have more time to practice it. Yeah, I used to play chess a bit in college just for fun as well too. I think my rating was really bad though, because I never could really.
Don't ask me for mine. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm pretty sure mine is probably lower. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and deep dive into your current company that you're running at the moment, Sapien. Feel free to share a presentation or demo that you might have.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just explain the elevator pitch. So it started. Well, I'll do the longer version. So
sure.
When I have a friend of mine from Waterloo who is a machine learning master's graduate, and I was kind of talking to him. He's a great guy, and he's kind of like teaching me about AI, and I'm asking him like, hey, can you like come over and like kind of give me a crash course on the technical kind of the AI stack? Like, what does it look like? And so as he was explaining to it, like one thing kind of came up that was kind of interesting to me, that human beings are crucial for the creation of AI, which was surprising to me because I didn't think the humans were needed at all. Like I thought it was just these sentient machines talking to each other or something. But it turns out like it's part of the supply chain of AI. Like there's, to produce these chat GPTs that are magical, there's a lot under the hood going on, and there's like a process, as you might imagine. So anyways, so I kind of got obsessed with that process, the operations of AI creation, and it really comes down to two things: the data and the compute. And part one is like a very crude example is like a supply chain. Like you have raw data, and then you have refineries. Like think of like oil, right? It starts out as crude oil in the ground, and then you have to refine it, and then it becomes useful. It becomes gasoline. So AI is like that. It starts out as raw data. That's like any data on the internet. There's 2 exabytes of data created every second on the internet, and AI wants all of that. It actually wants more than that. There's reports coming out now that like there's not enough data on the internet to satisfy kind of the insatiable appetite for some of these models. So you gotta structure the human. As it turns out, the human being component that helps structure the data is super important. Like OpenAI, I think, was the first LLM that gave industrial scale human feedback in these data sets, where they had like huge facilities of humans fine-tuning the data sets and like providing feedback prior to training, and also like fine-tuning the data after training. And so like that was how OpenAI won the first inning of the AI wars. Was they invented this technique called industrial scale RLHF, which is reinforcement learning with human feedback, which made their ChatGPT-1 and DALL-E magical, because like humans, everyone knew humans, there's academic terms of why humans are needed for like correcting biases, for helping with ethical components, for helping with like annotation and labeling and making the data a little bit better. But no one realized if you pour a lot of humans, these models can be really, really good. So what that did is it set out kind of like this arms race for human beings in AI. And now we're seeing it at Sapien, my new company, where there's just like everybody wants human feedback in their data sets. Like it's insane. It's like a 10-to-1 supply imbalance. I think I saw a report come out from one of the big VCs about this. So we were kind of thinking about this, saying, okay, well, here's a big problem. There's not enough humans. Like there's literally not enough humans that are labeling data and giving feedback. If you look at some of the budgets for human feedback, if you like zoom in a little bit, I'm seeing reports that OpenAI is spending $1 billion on this in the next 12 months. Wow. Same with Google Gemini. Yeah. And a lot of these budgets have literally 10x'd from last year because everyone's competing against each other. And if more humans equal better model performance, and everyone's trying to benchmark against each other for performance, it's not a surprise that more and more humans are being demanded. And so that was kind of part one, is kind of saying, okay, that's interesting. Didn't know that about AI. And then part two was kind of like, well, how is it done today? And it turns out is even more surprising than fact one was fact two, which is it's kind of old school. Like when I started, we was working with a guy who helped set up a lot of these facilities for these big tech companies that would use data labelers. And a lot of it's in Southeast Asia, like where you're currently at, or a little bit more like in the Philippines. There's a lot in Kenya, a lot in Africa. And it's like these kind of huge facilities of people, like call centers, basically, of people like answering data labeling questions like all day, every day, 24/7. And yeah, so I was kind of like, oh, interesting. I'm sure there's good reasons it's done like that, but to my kind of entrepreneurial mind, I'm like, it doesn't seem like a very first principles way to design a data
I think
label.
It sounds similar to the Amazon Turks, right? Which you might have heard, Amazon Turks, where they use human to label, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So same kind of thing. And so it felt a little not even like Web 2. It was like Web 1 kind of. It was like they forgot about Web 2, let alone Web 3. And so that was the beginning of Sapien, our current company. We said, hey, maybe we can make, learn from a lot of the people who came before us, and then maybe design a new marketplace or platform from first principles, where it's like, maybe the labeler is the customer. Maybe they're the ones that we design around. Maybe we make it really fun and interactive for them. And maybe, if we can be more efficient, we can pay them more. Maybe if we redesign like a more gamified interface, we can make it more fun. And maybe this is the secret to unlocking all the supply that's needed. I use the analogy of Uber a little bit, because Uber never had a demand problem. Everybody wants a nice, cheap ride from their phone. That's not the problem. That's not the bottleneck. The problem is the supply. How do you get enough drivers? Like, that's a whole, you got to onboard them, you got to train them, you got to make sure they're not, criminal records, whatever. And so from what I understand, Travis at Uber spent like 90% of his time, like, how to think about drivers, how to encourage them, how to make sure they don't go to Lyft and they come to him instead. And so we have that same kind of idea, like maybe, and look at the results of Uber, right? Like the amount of taxi drivers probably went up 1,000x because of ride sharing. Now everybody's a taxi driver. So we want to do the same thing for data labeling. We just want to unlock a lot of supply. And how do we do that? We have to do what Travis did at Uber. We have to make it way better to be an Uber driver than a taxi driver. So we have to make, like at Uber, you can work your own hours. You don't have to buy these freaking medallions. You get to use your own car, so you don't have to go into debt. And so like it's a much better experience. Plus they can make more money. So somehow Uber made it so it's cheaper for the customer or the rider, the passenger, and more lucrative for the driver. And so once you can like build something that's better for everyone, like it seems like a product that needs to exist in the world. So we're trying to like take a lot of those learnings and bring it to the data labeling market.
I see. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Then, I mean, to be honest, I did not even know there was a huge, I guess, lack of human labeling in this aspect. But then, but I think you probably may want to explain to maybe some of the non-technical listener why data labeling is so important for the machine learning process.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And there are certain areas of AI that don't need humans as much. It's called synthetic data, where you can actually create this data ex humans. But again, just seeing where the budgets are going, where the market's going, like there's no way to replace humans in AI yet. And in fact, as time goes on, it seems the need for humans is increasing, actually. And a lot of that has to do with specialization. So now, kind of like back to Uber again, you used to just have Uber Black, but then they added Uber Electric, Uber wheelchair, Uber X,
SUV or something like that.
Uber Ride. So they're verticalized. It's the same thing with data labeling. So at the beginning, it was just kind of like, hey, let's get humans to help with self-driving LiDAR data, which is like, is this a stop sign? Is how many humans are in this picture? And then a human being would kind of eyeball it. As time is going on now, even more specialized demand verticals are coming. So like, hey, I've got a radiology image. We need a radiologist to label the cancer cell or the tumor cell on this image. And so you can't just have anyone do that. You need to be like a licensed radiologist. And so you can think about that, but across like every single, like AI is going to touch every single industry. Healthcare, some of our customers are already in education, healthcare, finance, Web3. We have a customer that's labeling Etherscan data to build a pricing model. And nice. So who would have thought, like Etherscan data getting labeled for AI? And so that was kind of surprising, is that more and more humans are actually being needed than exist today across everything. If you're an expert in some area, even something kind of simple like poetry, that's actually a big vertical. These LLMs are not very good at humor and writing poetry, so we need a lot of professional comedians and poetry experts, poets, to like help make the model better and better. So that's kind of one way the model's been moving. And why are humans necessary? Like it's helping doing things that machines can't do yet. It's also helping with because humans are the end users of these outputs, and so who's better to help make the outputs than the people doing the inputs as well? So humans are good at like knowing what humans want. So you kind of have this like bias towards real humans doing real tasks that just make the end model perform better at the end of the day. You had that also with biases and ethical considerations too. So it's just kind of like the gold standard of labeling is from humans right now.
I see. So I guess we right now for most of the model to improve is through reinforcement learning is for them to have the feedback of human input, right? So for these human labeler, do they just basically do raise a thumb up, thumb down on some certain condition, or is there something more involved than that when it comes to the
Yeah,
data?
and that's a good point. That's another reason the humans, what they do is they fine tune the data. So it's kind of like the machines can get you so far, and then the humans come in and take you to that last mile. It's kind of like Amazon. Like it's easy to do everything except the last mile. That's kind of the hard part of like how do you deliver to the door. So it's the same with these models. If it's helpful, I could show a demo of what it looks like, please. And that might
Okay, nice. I can see.
Cool. So you guys can see it. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
So think of if you're a company who needs human feedback in your data set. So let's say you're building a model, but you need to structure that data before. We've made it so like anyone can just drag and drop their raw data. It's their data, like it's self-custodied, and we try to make it like super streamlined. So today, if you want to get data labeling, you have to like call up one of these providers. You have to, get lawyers and business development people involved. We've tried to like make it self-serve, so like abstract away all the complexity. So it's kind of like Uber. You just like upload your raw data set, you get a quote, and you pay because this is the customer. This is like the passenger, right? They're paying for a service.
Yeah.
So they have raw data. They need human input in that data, and then they pay, and that's it. And that money goes to the network, and then we have to fulfill that data.
When you mention raw data, right? What sort of raw data are we talking about? Is this like, for example, like sales data of a company or Etherscan data? It can be whatever.
It could be whatever. Yeah, we have in this example, you're going to see image-based bounding box data, and so this was another customer we had. This is real data, and to give you an idea of what data labeling can look like, this is not the typical case, but this is just a good one that shows how dynamic it can be. So this is a real customer. They're trying to build a model that detects wildlife that comes on their property. And so they needed humans to label this raw data. So this is their data. This is image screens from their camera systems on their property that detected animals. And now they want to detect what kind of animals. So this question, like we actually did some of the labeling ourselves as founders, just to empathize with the user. And so here's a question. Is that a female deer or a male juvenile deer? Right? Yeah. So that was like, this was actually the question. And it's kind of hard. Like you can see why a human might be necessary, because you're kind of looking and you're like, oh, it looks like those are antlers. That's probably a male juvenile deer. And so you would draw a bounding box around it, and then you would type in male juvenile deer, and then you'd be done. And then you'd go to the next question, just like that. And what's interesting, what I'd like to talk about quickly is how we think about our incentives, because it turns out there's a reason that a lot of these old school companies use these facilities in Southeast Asia. It's because of quality. That's the big challenge here, because once you have a lot of people in more of a distributed model label data, it's hard to ensure quality. So that's kind of the 900-pound gorilla, is like, how do you know people are going to play fairly? How do you know people are really human? They're not just bots. And how do you know people aren't just slacking off and cheating or trying to beat the system? In crypto, that's called like a Sybil attack. Like, how do you know people are playing fairly? And how can you not like guilt trip people to play fairly? We all know from Web3 consensus that doesn't work. You need to build a rock solid consensus type system where it's in everyone's best interest to behave, and selfishly it's in your best interest to play well. And so that's kind of the first principles thinking we've started with Sapien, is like, how can we design a system to do that? And it turns out there's a couple ways to do it. So one is just using kind of typical kind of gaming / Web2 incentives. So that's what you see here. We're giving people points as they play. And then we also have a multiplier coefficient that goes up and down based on how accurately our algorithms detect that you're playing. So we have some novel ways that guess at a high degree of probability whether you're playing accurately or not. And then we can give you real-time feedback on how well you're playing. And what this does, this little multiplier coefficient is pretty profound, because now we don't need a lot of the Web 2/Web 1 infrastructure anymore. We don't need office facilities where these people work. We don't need company laptops. We don't need, electricity to pay for the laptops or whatever. Everything's peer-to-peer now. So we don't need, it's like Uber, right? They don't need as much infrastructure because everything's decentralized. So that's one way to do it. It's just to use kind of clever incentives. Like we have a system where if you're playing accurately based on what we detect to a high degree of certainty, you can like spin the wheel and you can win like an airdrop from a third party, or you can win one of our points as well for a future situation. And so that's kind of what this game looks like now. It's a fun gamified interface where it's like, hey, if I'm a labeler, would I rather drive to one of these offices in a big city somewhere in the Philippines? I earn a couple bucks an hour, and then I have to like do all these boot camps and retroactive pay deductions in some cases. Or I can just like log into Sapien, label data from my phone, like at a bus stop instead of playing Candy Crush, and I could work for 5 minutes or for 5 hours. It doesn't matter. And it feels a little more like Uber than like a full-time employee-based kind of driving job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think totally makes sense. So in this game here, right, basically, if they give the wrong answer, probably, I guess they will not get any point, right? But then
they get points no matter what. It's the multiplier coefficient that goes up and down. So it actually starts at 0, and you have to like earn your way up to a positive. So it's a real calculation. Like when it's time to get paid, it's points times multiplier coefficient times conversion rate equals your payout in crypto. And so this is just one skin. We're experimenting. We have another Web3 skin, which we're really excited about, which introduces staking, which is actually a really exciting function, I think, because from our experiments, it turns out having folks stake a token, like our token, while they play the game, increases accuracy by a lot, because now people not only have skin in the game, not only do they have the potential to make more money on good behavior, but they also have skin in the game, so they can potentially lose their stake if we're extremely certain that they're trying to game the system. And just kind of like that threat of getting slashed. It's the same with like validators and any like proof of stake consensus. Just the threat of getting slashed, everybody behaves, everybody falls in line, et cetera, et cetera. So so it's early on. Like we don't have a token or anything. We don't really have any immediate plans for one or anything, but we're just kind of experimenting with different Web3 incentives on how to think about it and how to use these amazing kind of mechanism design systems to optimize behavior on the network.
I see. Yeah, I think that's very, very cool application of using Web3 token and then making it gamify aspect of it too.
Yeah, we have a different skin just to show you guys too. So this is like our StarCraft skin. This was our more casino style skin. But yeah, we've got a lot more high fidelity mock-ups as well. So we want people to like be able to join guilds. One of our investors is YGG, which is a Southeast Asian, the biggest
gaming guild, right? Yeah,
gaming guild. They're amazing, and we're actually super excited with their ecosystem and exploring different ways to like tap in to their guild network, because there's a perfect use case. We're trying to like help them earn money as a job, but they can also like play with Web3 and earn airdrops and things like this as well. So we you can see we're kind of like a mix between a two-sided marketplace, which we are, but also like kind of a Web3 game, but also doing like data infra, because that's what this is. This is not going to the end consumer. It's going to businesses that need data labeled for a model for a commercial purpose. So we're seeing a lot of demand for that. And we're just trying to like, again, it all comes down to that original problem. There's not enough diverse, high quality, highly engaged humans to satisfy demand by probably a factor of 100. So we just need more humans, number one, and we need a system to like make sure that they're doing good work and that they're it's a garbage in, garbage out system. Like if people are just not labeling properly, then your customers will never use your service again.
I like that. Yeah, I like how you guys came up with this whole system. I think lately we're also seeing a lot of the type of deep in type of project, right, where people just utilizing like excess resources to help them, whether it's like CPU, GPU. But in this case, you're using people excess TAM, right? TAM, and also the knowledge to help label and improve the machine learning model, AI model. So I think that's a very valid use case here that we can potentially see.
Yeah, and we are a use case. Like I always emphasize that. Like I see a lot of these AI projects trying to be these like hyper generalized AI, meta AI things, but like it's a big market now. You got to kind of pick a vertical within it and specialize. And like we're like a very narrow section of the AI, the data part of AI, and not even like the data structuring side. There's also data acquisition. We don't do that. There's also post training data stuff. We don't do that as much. It's like very specific to like people who have all this messy raw data and they need humans to help organize it and structure it. And that's our little area that we want to play in. And it's a big market too. Like it's a small relative section, but there's companies like one of my favorite companies is called Scale AI. They've got this amazing founder and an amazing team, and they're the beasts of data labeling. I think they're bigger than all the rest of us combined, and they've just done such a good job of like scaling the tooling needed to like service these huge customers. And so we're trying to take a lot of inspiration from them and kind of like go after a different market at a different angle. But it is a big market. It is growing. I think it's one of the fastest growing segments of AI, which is one of the fastest growing categories to begin with. So, and we're seeing that too, just in our kind of our early, because we're also going after enterprise customers, and we've already signed some pretty large ones. Actually, we have like a public Chinese education company. We have a lot of different folks at that level that are using us today for labeling. It's not like the perfectly beautiful, scalable, gamified system yet, but we're still servicing them just to like get reps in, to learn from them, to iterate, and yeah, we've been really pleased just with the demand. I guess that's been my biggest insight. Have we serviced everyone absolutely perfectly? No, but that's okay because the demand is so strong, and it's causing us to have the benefit of getting that customer feedback. Whereas with Polymath in the early days, it was manufacturing demand. Like the demand wasn't there, so you had to kind of evangelize. Now it's more just like selling, and it's not even selling. It's just like, hey, we exist, and the answer is there's
telling
like,
people about
like, oh, you have humans? Like the answer is yes. Like just prove to us that it's not garbage, and then we'll try you out and let's go. And so, so yeah, so far so good. Like it's been we've only been around for about a year, and we're kind of cycle agnostic. Like we launched this in the middle of the bear market, so we're in no rush or anything like that. We're just trying to like do the right thing, get product market fit, build a big community, and then figure out later on like the best ways to implement Web3 on top of that.
I see, and I think that's probably the right way to go anyway. And going slow, you don't need to go fast. I mean, especially anything with building a network, right? In my opinion, you probably need to go slow, because to build a network from 0 to, I don't know, 1,000, maybe 10,000 or a lot more on that participants, and would take some time. It's not easy. I'm just curious, how many people are actually working in your team right now? You said you want to do it for a year.
Yeah, we have 13. We bootstrapped for the first kind of get the product up, and then we just recently closed our seed round last week. So
Congratulations.
So yeah, we're at about 13. Thank you. Yeah, it's we're really excited. We had a great list of investors. Our announcement's coming out later this week, I think. And so for us now, it's like it's about winning the market. So now we're kind of like, okay, we've kind of got our first inclination of product market fit, and so now we know as a two-sided marketplace, it's all about building that network effect, building that moat from having a lot of users. And so that's kind of our main thing right now, is just like we're not really super competitive yet. Like we're not like in crypto, I've learned too, like it's more collaborative. We want because
It is.
I remember with Polymath was like, oh no, look at this other competitor. But like looking back, that didn't matter. Like we want the category to win. So we genuinely are very supportive of folks. We've also kind of updated our go to market a bit where we can actually hook into other people's customer pipelines that need data labelers. Mm-hmm. And so we're actually working on a standard to help kind of standardize the tech stack that data labeling companies use. So there's more collaboration and more interoperability. We have some experience doing this at Polymath. We wrote ERC 1400, which is now the default standard for tokenization on Ethereum prior to launching our own chain. And so yeah, we kind of have this more Web3 open, permissionless kind of, let's create open standards, let's be open source. And I think it's better for the community, and it's also better for us as a project in the long run as well.
Yeah, for sure. I also agree with that approach. I think Web3 right now is still at a very early days in terms of, user adoption and also enterprise adoption. So we still probably have a long way to go. So I think, collaborative approach is probably the right way to go. I don't think more people coming in is always a good thing for Web3 in general anyway. It's the way I see it, yeah. So with a small team after fundraising, what are some of the challenges facing your team at the moment? Anything in particular?
What order do you want them in? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's I tell a lot of folks, like, launching a Web3 company is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of nerves to do it. I never thought I'd do another one after Polymath, but a lot of it comes, like, a lot of it's new in Web3, and there's like a lot of like kind of special challenges with Web3, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it is old school, like Y Combinator style, like get a great co-founder, build an amazing team, talk to customers, get iterative loops going from your product team and your sales team. And so I've kind of evolved to being more, this is a lot more like a traditional startup. But with that said, I think you do want a lot of Web3 talent on your team, because it does take a little while to go from the normie Web2 world to Web3. There's a lot of like skills and different mindsets that change a little bit. So I think this is a good use case where it's kind of like a hybrid, where we're actually servicing real customers. It's not just like a Web3 game, with an endless loop of digital characters. Like, we're actually like serving customers and hopefully giving them value. And then there's kind of demand coming into the network. Hopefully it's not just like an endless airdrop kind of thing. And we've actually learned a lot from other people in Web3 that came before us. Like, a lot of these Web3 games are amazing. Like Axie Infinity, I thought is a groundbreaking, brand new gig working category. So we think it's super awesome what they've done, and we're trying to like learn from them as much as we can, because a lot of what we're doing too is like building an interactive Web3 gamified experience. Even though it's technically work, we're trying to make it feel like fun and make it so you can win multiplier effects, you can win airdrops, you can win lots of stuff like that just by playing well.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I think Axie Infinity is one of the first like Vietnamese-based company that actually raised to over $1 USD in like less than 1 or 2 years, something like that. Anyway, it's really impressive. Yeah. I think their tokenomics is a bit somewhat like flawed to say the least. So that was quite unfortunate, right? And then they also suffer from a hack. But I think, and people, I never played the game, to be honest, but people told me that they play the game. The game is not so much fun to play so much, right? It's more like grinding, which is not what you want to do. So, but looking at what you guys have built here, it looks quite enjoyable. So I hope that the gamification aspect of it will help to draw people in. Because I think gaming at the end of the day, you still have to rely on the fun aspect, right? You can't just rely on like the making money part of it. Yeah.
Totally. I'd love to show you guys a live. We're releasing our kind of live open product relatively soon. So I'd love to share with you and your community and get some feedback from you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Love for that. Just maybe a couple more questions here on my side. But where do you think the future, where AI and Web3 intersection, like where is this intersection heading in the next few years? Like, will we see something quite interesting, something quite new in the future? Or
I have a lot of super smart friends who don't see the exact overlaps between the two, between AI and Web3, that I respect their opinion. But for me, it's always been like a super natural, obvious symbiotic relationship between the two, just like immediately once I started learning about how modern AI is kind of created. AI is kind of like internet native. It's all these agents coming up. They're going to need a currency to interact in, which Web3 tokens seem like a great use case. I'm seeing a lot of really interesting projects come up around kind of decentralizing a lot of parts of AI, where big tech is kind of running away with a monopoly. Because unfortunately, with AI, a lot of the value is accruing to the big tech companies, it seems like. Whereas in Web3, a lot of the value accrues to startups, which is better. And so I think figuring out ways in the same way like Bitcoin decentralized, the financial system, we're trying to like decentralize AI. Maybe not one project decentralizing all of AI, but like, there's a company called Ritual. I'm an investor where they're decentralizing compute and doing a lot of other interesting stuff at the kind of down to the metal layer of the AI stack. And that's cool. Like decentralizing compute where you can like rent your GPUs and like kind of in the cloud, that kind of thing. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think a lot of ZK stuff is interesting too, where how do you know the model that you fed data into is outputting you the right output? There's a lot of like uncertainty there. So there's like some ZK stuff I think that can make it better. And then just like having these two exciting new new paradigms kind of feeding off each other is super exciting to me. So we're on the data side, so we're trying to like a little less infra, but still infra, but not like base layer blockchain stuff. But we're trying to like use Web3, use staking integrations, use Web3 payments as well. That's a big problem for a lot of these folks getting paid in the Philippines and stuff, and they have all these like remittance problems and stuff like that. So I think a lot of great ways. Like we're laser focusing on this segment, but I'm sure you see a lot of exciting stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you mentioned that you probably would not be the layer, but then like blockchain layer. But then I guess maybe later on when you launch it, you still have to function on top of is it on top of blockchain, right? So do you have any idea what sort of blockchain will you be functioning on at this point, or this still too early, or like?
Good question. We're actually on purpose. We're deferring that decision. We're very agnostic right now. I know my limitations. I haven't caught up to date with all the perfect benefits of all Avalanche versus Arbitrum versus Solana.
So
I was kind of in Ethereum. I never thought I'd see the day kind of leaving Ethereum, but we did with launching Substrate at Polymesh, and now for this chain, I think we're gonna need something that's high throughput. We're gonna need something with a great community that we can lean into, and it's one of our priorities for Q2 and Q3 actually is selecting which L2 we're gonna launch on or layer one.
Okay, I see. Wow, that's all super exciting. Yeah. So I know high throughput. I mean, always come to my mind Solana and Near, but Solana lately been suffering a lot from like the failed transaction. Near I think is great. I don't know.
We love Near. Ilya is an absolute legend. I was fortunate enough to have a meal with him, and absolutely, Near would be at the top of the list of picking a chain.
Yeah, for sure. And I think lately they also have the EVM compatibility somewhat, right? So that make it probably easier too. Yeah, for that.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, so just two more questions from my side, just to respect your time here. And then, do you have any advice for people who want their own Web3 company? Since you've done it a lot by now, or done it more than most
yes.
people.
Get a therapist in advance. No, I'm just kidding. It's it's really okay. I would say learn. First of all, do it. It's the best place to be. It's an amazing community. There's so much upside, and it's so accessible. Like all these VCs, these huge Web3 VCs, they're like 2 years old. They're like new, and they're trying to figure it out too. And so it's not this stodgy, like Sandhill Road kind of, you have to go to Stanford to even talk to us. It's like very open. Everyone's on Twitter. The conferences are great. I try to tell founders to avoid going to too many conferences, but in crypto, especially when you're getting started out, I think it's a great way to go to find your community. I think picking verticals now, you can't just tell your friends you're in Web3. You got to say, well, what part now? Are you in NFTs? Are you in DeFi? Are you in stable coins? Are you in real world assets. And then even within those verticals are getting so big now, you have to pick a subsection. But yeah, my advice would just be, just do it, learn as much as you can, try to understand the technical foundation first before anything else, and don't trade under any circumstances. Don't be a trader, don't be a speculator, unless you're doing kind of like yield farming stuff, where you're using the protocols and you're locking stuff up. Like, I would allow that because that's a little more like you're actually using and interacting it. But do anything but day trading, and then learn as much as you can and try to understand the technical, if not the programming part, like the architecture of how things work and how these kind of Lego blocks interact with each other in Web3.
Yeah, I think those are very sound advice. Actually, it's actually quite hard to like I think you mentioned earlier, like it's actually takes some time for someone to move from like a Web2 native person, even if they have like IT or computer science background, to become a Web3 person, because I think there's just a lot of these moving parts and a lot of new primitives, right? I think what we like to say in computer science, new primitives that they probably never encounter in the past. Like, for example, even decentralized data. What the heck is a decentralized database, right? They only use like Postgres or SQL, So, and then now a bunch of other primitives on top as well. So yeah, those are very solid advice. Awesome. And final question, where can people follow you and your company? Yeah, feel free to give some links, and I'll make sure to put them show notes.
Yes, Sapien.io is the Sapien homepage, and then my socials is just @ and my name on all the socials. You can check me out.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to put all of that in the show notes. Trevor, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. It's been very wonderful talking about your new project, Sapien, and I wish you the best of luck in this journey. It's going to be a tough journey. Maybe another 5 years. It's like 5 years is like last time. We don't know. But anyway, best of luck.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, and great questions. We'd love to stay in touch.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Bye now.
And we're back to my studio. Did you guys enjoy this episode with Trevor Koverko? I think he has a lot of interesting stories since he's been involved in crypto since the beginning of the Ethereum ecosystem. And I think his company is tackling a very interesting aspect of AI, which is human labeling. So humans are still actually very much needed in the AI machine learning training process. If you like this episode, please give a like and comment below what you learned. For the next episode, I'll be talking to Leona Hioki. He's the co-founder of IntMag, a stateless layer 2 on Ethereum using zero-knowledge proof to ensure on-chain privacy with super cheap transaction fees. He's also an early participant in the early days of Ethereum ecosystem. It's a very interesting conversation that you don't want to miss. Once again, thank you for listening, and see you next time.